Welcome one, welcome all to an obscure tour at the edge of the internet. Today we will be visiting Firelink Shrine, where I'll be introducing a concept I call Symbolic Storytelling. We will then be moving on to the Propecy of the Undead Burg, and then discuss the theme of Dark Souls of Cycles and Transcendence. It's going to be a jam-packed episode, so let's get going. Right now, I just want to demonstrate something I did not demonstrate before. Notice that my Estus flasks are 4, now they are 3 as I consume one. If I rest at this bonfire, the Estus flask returns to 5. That was a bonfire that I lit last episode. So now as we come up here, just note that the crow that we are about to see is a symbol of the Witch of Izalith.
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen. To leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
Welcome to Firelink Shrine, and welcome to Lordran. Let's start by noticing this bonfire. This bonfire is already lit, and when I rest at this bonfire, you'll notice I now have 10 Estus flasks. That is because of this character down here. This character is a Firekeeper. The Firekeepers are marked by the bonfire that we saw above, a lit bonfire that gives 10 Estus flasks. And we'll be meeting a few of these Firekeepers along our journey. So what the Firekeepers are they're explained later in the game by another Firekeeper as guides. They are beacons in the darkness. What they also do is form, all of the Firekeepers come together to form a set of symbols that represents the journey of Velka, goddess of sin. Here we have a Firekeeper, and when we go to talk to her, she cannot speak. For those who have played the game, may have an inkling about what I am getting at there, what this vignette is referring to. So, to explain this concept that I call symbolic storytelling, and I call it that because I don't know the technical term for it. I'm sure there is one. If anyone knows it, please let me know. This is a form of storytelling where the story is being told through symbols or metaphors. Now, usually metaphors and symbols represent something external to the story. An emotion, a force of nature, a real-world event. All these things are the usual trappings of metaphors. But what the cycle of the Firekeepers does is tell the story. Each Firekeeper tells a different stage of Velka's storyline. But not only that, these Firekeepers themselves are all fully fleshed out characters and all have their own important role to play in the story of Dark Souls. Here we have one such character, and you may recognize her from the opening cinematic placing the dark sign on the chosen undead. This character is extremely important, and we'll be getting to her story later. But it's important to note that she has nothing to do with Velka. Well, she's slightly related to Velka, but then everybody in Dark Souls is slightly related to somebody else. It's a small community. But she has no real relationship to Velka. She has a completely different storyline. She's a completely independent character with no relation to Velka. But her state and the way that we find her at the beginning of the game allows us to see a stage in Velka's storyline. And this is true for all of the Firekeepers. And I just wanted to point that out because I find that absolutely amazing. The developers of the game have been able to tell the story of Velka using completely independent characters from the storyline of Velka. The intersection of those characters' events and the ability to be able to tell the story that way is just an amazing feat of craftsmanship. The ability to be able to do that would have required so much planning and so much thought, and making all those moving parts come together must have required a lot of work. And there will be another cycle that we will be introducing next episode, and that cycle is not done as well as the Firekeepers cycle, and that's just why I wanted to highlight that one as the first example of it, just because I believe it is the best example of it, and it's just executed so well, the Firekeeper cycle. And we'll be using symbolic storytelling today in the Propecy of the Undead Burg to show the power of using this type of storytelling. Now here we are in Firelink Shrine proper. Here we have a statue of the Witch of Izalith, and she holds a child, and that child is Priscilla. The Witch of Izalith has two children, the firstborn of Gwyn and Priscilla. And the firstborn of Gwyn is born during the Age of Ancients, during the fight with the dragons. And Priscilla is born in the First Age of Fire. And that's why she's been depicted in that statue as a child. And now, as the original subtitle to Dark Souls tells me, I am prepared to die, as I risk everything for a very important item for this tour, the Binoculars. Oh no, not that way, this way. Will I make it? Okay, yes, there we go. Wonderful. So now, the binoculars were a starting gift that I could have chosen. So I just want to address that this item right now. Binoculars made of brass, used to peer at distant scenery. This advanced device was built by a famous craftsman of Astora. Its utility is singular, but its applications many. The value of these specs depends greatly on the imagination of their owner. So we have the binoculars, and what I'd just like to point out now is that we now have another reference to Astora, the place that we talked about in the character creation screen. And it is a rather important place, but now we have a little bit of more information about Astora. Not only is it a place of beautiful people, of refined people, but it's also a place of advanced technology. The people of Astoria are both beautiful and they are intelligent. Sounds like a pretty great place to live, doesn't it? But leaving the story of Astoria for now, I just want to demonstrate something quickly. So that character is chasing me. Can I see them? Yes, there they are, behind the well, if you could just see them quickly. Now, I rested this bonfire, and that character who was just behind this well here, coming down the stairs, is gone. They have been reset to this place over here. Now, this is a fairly common concept in gaming. It's existed since I was a young lad playing my Mega Drive. Now, this might seem a little bit crazy, but this is actually important to the lore of Dark Souls. This resetting of the world, and it's core to the idea of cycles. When I rested at that bonfire, the world reset. And that is something that I will be referring to as the cycle of the bonfires. These hollows here reset to their position every time I rest at a bonfire. Or I die, which also causes the cycle of the bonfires to continue. I just wanted to introduce that now, as it will come up later. We get out of this noisy hallway, just as I talk about what we are about to do. So now, what I want to do is what I call the Propecy of the Undead Burg. And what I wanted to do with this is demonstrate the power of symbolic storytelling and analyzing enemy placement and item placement. Now, as this is a prophecy, there will be spoilers for the rest of the tour. So for those who wish to remain spoiler-free, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a time code in the description below, where I will be, during the prophecy, I will be discussing more about the cycles, the theme of cycles. That discussion of cycles will be spoiler-free, so if you want to, you can stop the tour right here and then hit the link and just jump ahead and remain spoiler-free. And then later on, once you've seen as much of the tour as you choose, you might wish to come back and see the Prophecy of the Undead Burg. So I'll say goodbye to those who wish to remain spoiler-free for now. I do enjoy the idea of a prophecy that starts with spoiler alert. Okay. Now, for those who are remaining, the Prophecy of the Undead Burg. The way that I wish to present this prophecy to you is just as that, as a series of vague statements. For those who have played some of the game, or all of the game, you may be able to see what it is I'm alluding to, but I want to keep it vague, and I want to keep it rather odd like that, like as a vision, as this will allow you to see for yourself the power of seeing the codes that are embedded in Dark Souls. Now, so let's begin this prophecy, shall we? This prophecy, first, it describes a place. And in this place, leaps of faith will be required. There will be ways down, but no way back. And as though, while I contemplate these leaps of faith, as though out of nowhere, monsters will appear. This monster was taking a long time, and this prophecy takes a while, so I wish they would just hurry up. A deceptive enemy will attempt to attack me from the back. I will take the leap of faith, and I'll find a promising piece of treasure. I will take another leap of faith, and with no way back, I will push on. Monsters will once again appear as though from nowhere and attack me. Though, as I explore, I'm rather disappointed. What looked like a place of great power is actually a ruined, abandoned home. The entrance has been boarded up. This place is forgotten. Perhaps in here? No. Just more ruin. Though the ones here seem to have moved out. Maybe this was the treasure I was looking for. But as I contemplate that, I am ambushed once again, as though from nowhere. And then I claim my prize. But it's rubbish, leftover waste. Here, the visions become mixed, as I find one marked with humanity. So, there is the first section. For those who have played the game might have a bit of an inkling about what that section is all about. And hopefully if you did know what I was just referring to, you start to see the power of symbolic storytelling. What does it all mean? On to the next section. I will come across a place that is heavily guarded. I see stairs that I will need to traverse to dispatch those that shoot at me from afar. I will enter a tower. And inside that tower, I will find a white dragon. And that is another area. I will come to a place where two guard a sealed entrance. Seal and descend. But in this place, I will find a character.
Well now, you seem to have your wits about you, hmm? Then you are a welcome customer. I trade for souls. Everything's for sale.
Who seems quite cheerful, if a little bit crazy.
Thank you kindly. Oh, you again. I hope you've brought plenty of souls. What a waste of time. Go and fall off a cliff.
But can be somewhat capricious. He has the trappings of a home, but no actual home himself. He will have an affection for something that isn't there. But why not this home? Well, it has to be the right home. The wrong home will bring nothing but catastrophe. Four chosen. A great ascent. Here the visions become mixed again. A thief. Throwing knives. The treasure that I sought in the forgotten home. But also the markings of a thief who is able to damage enemies at afar. A pathway. Below, it seems as though I can access it, but it's actually inaccessible. The only true way to access it is through a descent. A parting of ways. Here the vision becomes mixed again. In the forgotten home, I will find the dead firing on those marked with humanity. In another vision, one kills one marked with humanity. It's the bolt that kills, but it is the crossbow that pulled the trigger. And that is another section. I hope you're enjoying the spooky prophecy of the Undead Burg. It's crazy what is hidden in the Undead Burg. Though all of these visions are rather exhausting, maybe I should return to Filing Shrine. Oh, that's right. I can't warp at this point in time. A rain of fire. A home between places. Though this transient being is gone. Locked away? No. They've barred the entrance to their realm. A home still lived in. One will attack me as I attempt to enter. While another hides passively out the back. I will move from one area to another. And there I will find great fire. And now the next area. One will attack me with something like a sword. Another will attack me with something like an axe. While another will throw projectiles at me from afar. Guarding a locked home where there is no one. Out the back will be the remains of lightning. That was another section. I will now leave the prophecy for the moment, as we will invite everybody back to continue the discussion of cycles, and they're through an interesting gameplay mechanic. If you'd like to get ahead of the prophecy of the Undead Burg, perhaps you're noticing things already as I just move through to the character I need to talk about. So welcome back to everybody who chose to remain spoiler-free. And now I'd like to continue the discussion of the themes of cycles. And to do so, I will use this character here. If you remember the last episode, Gwyn went to link the flame, the first flame, to bring it back to life. When he did so, he split his Silver Knights into two groups. One group remained in Enolondo, the city of gods, and the other group travelled with him. When Gwyn went to link the flame, as it burst back into life, the Silver Knights that accompanied him were charred and burnt, and that's what created the Black Knights. So now, I want to demonstrate something. I will now dispatch this knight by using the cycle of the bonfires, but unfortunately he's a little bit more persistent than the hollows. And now I'll just go a little bit quiet as I dispatch this Black Knight, as the prophecies and the visions have somewhat exhausted me, and I do not want to die to this Black Knight. that's great. I also got a Black Knight sword, which is pretty great. So, put down my controller for a second. Cycles and cycles. It's a very important theme to Dark Souls. It's so important that when the creators were first selling the game to people, they told everybody that cycles were the central core element of Dark Souls. And as we could just see there with the interaction between the Black Knight and the bonfire, the cycles are both part of the lore and part of the gameplay. The reason that the Black Knight was not affected by the cycle of the bonfires was that they were burnt by the first flame, and that energy caused them to transcend, to change into something that they were no longer, that they weren't before. And that's the other half of the theme of cycles, is the transcendency, transcending the cycle, finding a way from one level to another level. And this comes up in symbols being used, such as flame and kilns and crucibles, things being changed physically, and their physical properties being manipulated by fire. And the reason I wanted to point this out now, and I should also say, just sticking to that point for the moment. So we have the hollows out here. They are ruled by the cycle of the bonfires. So just think about how the world looks to these hollows. They are defending this place, and then I dispatch them. They are dead. And to them, the world stops existing. Whatever happens to a hollow after death, that is now what they are experiencing. We return to the bonfire, and now they are returned to place as though nothing happened. The Dark Knight is missing. He is no longer down there. When he is dispatched, he does not respawn. He exists in a different cycle. And there is another cycle in Dark Souls, and that is the New Game Plus cycle. So when the world, when the game ends, the game starts again in your typical New Game Plus gameplay mechanic. The world begins again, and all of the enemies are slightly tougher than before. I'm sure you've seen that in lots of games elsewhere. So, but that is the cycle that dictates the Black Knight's existence, and we exist in a different cycle, and that cycle is caused by the dark sign. We will be getting to all that more, but I just wanted to introduce all of those concepts now, so that we can discuss all of that later on. And it's also very important to reading the lore of Dark Souls, because it's important to note that the story of Lordran is also a cycle. It's cycles within cycles, characters doing the same things to the ones that came before. And once that idea is in your head, it's a lot easier to see the story being told as you realize that this is the core theme that the creative team of Dark Souls was trying to convey with the story and with the design and everything else. Now, to those who wish to remain spoiler-free, I will say goodbye to you once again. So I'll just do the recap now. So today we talked about symbolic storytelling and the cycle of the Firekeepers with Felka. We then did the Undead Burg Propecy, which we will be finishing up after this section, and then we will be, and then we discussed the idea of cycles and transcendency. Next episode, we will be talking about souls and humanity and going down into the Dark Root Basin, and we will be also introducing a very important character to the tour. So I hope to see everybody who wishes to stay spoiler-free then. And for those who wish to remain, let's continue on the tour on the Undead Prophecy. The Prophecy of the Undead Burg. So while we were discussing cycles, I'm wondering whether anybody is able to decipher the last section of the prophecy. There are other parts to this prophecy, of course. I'm not going to discuss everything on the first read through, but now you know how to read the prophecy. Maybe you can notice some extra detail that I've omitted. Now, continuing. An archer in the tower. Two blades in a round. Blades of a dark moon. A choice. An ascension or a dissension. An ascension. A burning sun and an inescapable blaze. A trap. A dissension. But ultimately also a lie. One will look over ruin, marked by tears, blue and silver. With a strange affinity for death. And there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the prophecy of the Undead Burg. Just a quick discussion on the power of this symbolic storytelling. So what we've experienced here is extremely cool. The developers of Dark Souls have been able to place a map of the entirety of your journey through Lordran in the Undead Burg, but it's a little bit more than just a map. The details that I was talking about earlier, the ones that I've omitted, they've been mainly omitted for time, but also gives us more things to discuss along the way. Here is in this area is a lot of the detail that can be found elsewhere in the game, but is then reinforced in the placement of items that I didn't talk about. Relationships between characters are also expressed in the design of the Undead Burg. Also, slightly hidden elements. An example that I can talk about, and that is in Nito's realm. Nito has become more than diminished in Lordran. He's become completely forgotten. And at first that might not seem obvious because out of all the lords, he's probably in the best state of all of them. But when we look at his section in the Undead Burg, we see that there's no real power in his realm. And so this is the developers re-emphasizing that idea to us that Nito is more than just a diminished character. He is a completely forgotten entity. So I'll call it here. I'm already way over time, and I've talked enough for today. Next week, we will be going down into the Dark Root Basin, and we will be introducing a very important character to the tour. Hope to see you then. Bye.